Joining me now is MSNBC's Mariana Atencio, who has been covering the story for weeks now. Dr. Jennifer Havens is the director of child psychiatry at the Bellevue Hospital Center. She's overseeing doctors treating separated migrant children in New York City. And Dr. Jamie Howard is a clinical psychologist with the Child Mind Institute. Thank you to all of you for being here. Mariana, you've seen something different. You've also been on the road and you've spoken to children who have been separated from their parents.
I spent the whole of last week, Ali, talking to children like the one in the video, children who were separated from their parents at the border. And it is so traumatizing what they've lived through that I don't think we can even begin to grasp the trauma that these children have experienced, because they're doubly traumatized. It's the violence that they're fleeing from, it's the harrowing journey, and then when they think that they've crossed over the finish line, then they get torn from their parents. Some kids telling me they weren't given an explanation as to why they were being separated, when they were going to be able to see their parents again. I spoke to kids who had been separated from their parents for 5-6 days, and sometimes I had to stop mid-interview because the kids were sobbing uncontrollably. I want to play a soundbite for you of Ashley and her mom, Wendy. They both came from Honduras, and they were both separated for 5 days. Little Ashley is 10. This is my conversation with them. What is the most painful thing?
¿Cuál es su pregunta?
¿Qué es lo más doloroso de este proceso por el que acaban de pasar? What strikes you the most about this process?
El separarnos un poco de nuestros hijos.
Having been separated, how many times did you get to see each other?
¿Cuánto tiempo?
¿Qué tantas veces se lograron ver?
Pues fíjese que cada vez que yo quería, porque solo me dividía una reja de ella.
So
entonces,
I could see her through some sort of fence.
A cada rato le hablaba,
So I tried to talk to her through that fence.
Le daba aliento para que
I gave her hope
fuerte,
so that she could be strong. Talking to your mom through a fence, not being able to touch her, it is similar to the symptoms that I've seen in kids when I've been to the Syrian border, Ali. Kids who are fleeing dangerous situations. They are in limbo. They've lost all of their belongings. And also, you see the other end of the spectrum, which is they talk sometimes so matter-of-fact about the violence.
So you don't really get that.
And it's the sense of, you know, their childhood, their innocence has been taken from them.
Dr. Havens, referring to that initial clip that we watched from the Cayuga centers, you found that very disturbing, that little girl who was being reported. Tell me what you saw when you saw that.
Well, you know, attachment between parents and children is like air. It's a basic need we have. Right. And she's so distraught and so frightened, and you heard her emphasis. She just wants to talk to her mother. Wants to know that her mother is still there. And that's the issue with trying to help these kids, is that, you know, the classic approach to treating traumatized kids is you make them safe first.
Right. And there's no way this child's going to feel safe in the absence of her mother.
Until she's back with her parents.
Right.
I mean, having contact helps, because, yeah, that's a very young child. That looked like maybe a 2-year-old. So, you know, they need contact. So I know they're really struggling to do that for these kids, but it's like taking away, you know, your life source. And we don't separate children from their parents unless we absolutely have to.
Courts have showed that. The fact that there's a nicer home somewhere else is not enough of a cause. Children's attachment to their parents is
hardwired.
Yeah.
Hardwired.
Dr. Howard, I think Mariana said something very interesting. It's not obvious that these kids show signs of distress. You are experts, so you see it. But kids can look very resilient.
They can, but we don't want to be confused by behavior that seems to be calm. They're probably having what we call a freeze response. So the fight, flight, freeze response goes off after we're exposed to dangerous, uncertain situations. And it can keep going off, and it can sort of make us look numb and frozen or calm if we don't know what we're actually looking at. But make no mistake, these children are not okay. They're not calm. They're not doing well.
And the younger the child, the more likely their only option they're going to have in the face of a trauma is freezing, because they can't fight and they can't flight. excuse my grammar, but so a lot of, when I see some of these kids on TV, the little ones, it's like they're not there. Right, they've just gone away because the emotions
out of body almost.
Yes, the emotions are so unbearable.
So the teacher who said we're not allowed to ask them questions, we're not allowed to touch them, we're not allowed to hug them. How do you compensate for this? If these kids are separated from their parents, what is the best service we can offer them?
Getting them reunited.
Well, first of all,
not having them separated from their parents would be the best service we can offer.
And we do need them to have contact. That's how they regulate their emotions.
Right.
So they really need that hugging, that comfort from a kind adult who can give them some information and physical assurance.
And you know, they're worried about their parents. That's you know, no matter how young they are, the kids are going to worry where they are, and given the circumstances of what they're fleeing from and what they just went through, they're also worried about their parents. You know, and that'll be more common in the older kids, but
meaning concern. They're worried. They're worried about their parents' safety or their parents.
Yes, and sometimes they're not even told anything. Some of the families that I've spoken to, they weren't given an explanation. You know, we're separating you for your mommy because of XYZ. You'll be able to see her tomorrow. Another thing, Ali, is that they're not spoken to in their language. This is not only Spanish that these kids speak. I just got an urgent notice from the Raíces organization, one of the NGOs on the ground. Translators desperately needed for Zapoteca, Nahua, Mam, all of these indigenous languages that are spoken in countries like Guatemala and El Salvador and Honduras.
Right. So to what degree, this is an interesting point, when talking to these kids, to what degree do young kids, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, can they handle the amount of information? This is a big deal, right? I mean, I'm not sure. I would struggle with the information that I'm separated from my kids. Can these kids be told more?
Always tell kids the truth, because they know when you're lying, and you can't protect them from what it's already been done to them. They've already been
their parents have been wrenched away from them.
Yes, right.
You might as well tell them that's
the most reassuring thing you can do, other than getting them in contact and getting them, is to tell them, to the extent that you can, you know, what is happening. And I know the folks working with these kids in New York City that's their goal, to make the kids connected and safe. And you know, the clip you showed was a teacher.
Yeah.
Now, there are people in this building who know what's going on with the kids and who are working with the kids in their family and who are working with the kids clinically to try to help them. Teachers don't have the same level of information, say, that a case manager or a clinician would.
Right.
And they're actually told not to try to handle the kids' mental health problems. So that wasn't, you know, an inhumane thing. That's just the way we work that stuff.
Got it. All right. Thank you. This is a heart-wrenching and difficult to understand topic, but we appreciate, Mariana, your reporting and your expertise in trying to help us understand how not to make a bad situation worse. Dr. Jennifer Havens and Dr. Jamie Howard and Mariana Atencio. All right, coming up next.